Hello and welcome back to Hydroponics Daily, your go-to podcast for everything soilless cultivation. We've talked in the past about using hydroponics to produce animal feed, like livestock, for like things like fodder production, grass production, and said that it's used commercially for this. And I thought I would do a episode on using hydroponics for helping animals in zoos. So using hydroponics in a zoo type scenario. So there's a number of different advantages for this, and it could improve animal welfare, animal care, animal nutrition. And that's why a number of zoos produce crops hydroponically. The other reason is that you can get all year round production, and some animals eat a lot of plant material. So examples include Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Gardens. That's a good link up there because you've got the botanists and the zoologists in one place. Famous for the giraffe, the gorilla that got killed, wasn't it? Was it Harambe, something like that? Cincinnati is also where we make gold leaf. So yeah, good place to grow hydroponically in a zoo. You've got all those botanists, great fertilizer, and hungry animals. And they have 2 hydroponic container farms or shipping containers where they grow leafy greens and mainly lettuce and kale for their giraffes, their manatees, their elephants and hippos and more. So that's interesting. They can produce over 10,000 pounds. What's that? That's 5,000 kilos, 5 tons. Well, that's how much they've produced since they launched it. And that's roughly 200, 300 pounds or 150 kilos a week. And their goal is for internal efficiency, supply chain resilience, odor-free feed. That's interesting. Carbon reduction and emergency preparedness. So that's interesting. You know, if food has to be prioritized for humans, if there's an emergency, then obviously the zoos are going to suffer. Any of these examples, obviously, some of them will be out of date and not up to date. So just bear with me on that. For example, Peyton Zoo in the UK, that had a hydroponic lab established in 2008. So that was really early on. That was in a greenhouse, and that was a verticrop system. So the plants moved around the system rather than the water. That was interesting. And they had stacks and stacks of leafy greens, high density, and it was both an educational and a conservation tool. And that was hoped it would reduce feed costs, offer nutrient-rich diets, and serve as a live demonstration of sustainable urban farming. However, the hydroponic system closed down and they converted back to soil cultivation at Peyton. So that's disappointing. Philadelphia Zoo, they were one of the pioneers in zoo-based hydroponics as well. And they have shipping container vertical farms called the Crop Box, where they grow microgreens, arugula, is that coriander? Mustard greens. Again, about 150 kilos a month, feeding approximately 20 animal species. So that's interesting. The shipping container option obviously is great for cost, but doesn't look great from a visitor's perspective. And so something like Peyton's, I'd say, is probably a better system because you can get people in, get them looking at the system. And if the plants are moving around, it looks cool as well. That's probably the coolest system I've ever seen for hydroponics. It's certainly up there with the Dyson strawberries on a Ferris wheel sort of system. Cheyenne Mountain Zoo in Colorado, they deployed a shipping container vertical hydroponic system to grow lettuce, particularly romaine lettuce for their giraffes. And they had automatic lights, water, nutrition control, a basic hydroponic setup. So there are a number of examples of zoos using it. You know, you got some very fussy animals there that don't want standard veg coming straight from the supermarket, and they're just colossal amounts all year round, and they're going to need consistency. So they don't care if, you know, a certain vegetable is not particularly seasonal at a certain time of the year. They need consistency for their animals, for their health, to maintain them. So freshness matters. Same day harvest ensures full nutrients and vibrant flavor. They know their demands, so they can manage everything. It's not like they have to be on the whim of people. And like, you know, in shops, when somebody like Martha Stewart has a cooking show, or in the UK, Nigella Lawson, as soon as they have a recipe, then suddenly the demands for celeriac or rhubarb go through the roof. And so supermarkets have to adapt. In a zoo, you know what your animals are going to want every day, so you can plan around that. Obviously, the efficiency on water use in certain situations is going to help. And there's not going to be a lot of soil around for cultivation. All the soil is going to be trampled by the animals. Biosecurity, making sure that they're free of pathogens like E. coli, salmonella. They can't just go to the vet and ask for the sort of antibiotics that we would get here if you had a salmonella outbreak. And the resilience, prevention of supply chain disruption for weather, global recalls, things like this. And then the big one is education. And you could allow people to look at food security, and you could build that into the zoo's educational remits, because that's a big, conservation is a big remit of a zoo, but so is education. So often they justify themselves on those two things. So shipping containers are the most commonly used hydroponic farms on zoos, but I think the vertical crop system, something automated, something that moves around, is probably better from an educational perspective, because anything that kids on school trips like to see things moving. They don't just like to stare at plants in a shipping container. So yeah, I think that's probably covered everything there is to know about growing hydroponically in a zoo. I think shipping containers have the other advantage that they're easy to scale. You just add another container next door or on top, whereas a greenhouse requires planning permission and things like this. So it's not just a novelty, it's a powerful tool for animal nutrition, visitor education, and potentially resilient food systems. That's been zoos. If you grow hydroponically in a zoo, let me know. I'd love to come and see your system. I'm Dr. Russell Sharp, the inventor of gold leaf fertilizer, as it's known in the US, or liquid gold, and loads of other products in the UK. We have a number of, high-value specialist inputs for hydroponics and sports turf and other sectors. If you're interested in collaborating on an episode, if you've got something interesting to note about hydroponics, you've got a new fancy widget or system, or you're utilizing hydroponics in an interesting way, then please do get in touch, and I'd love to talk further about that with you and feature it on an episode of Hydroponics Daily. Until tomorrow, thank you for listening. Goodbye.